Weed, reefer, pot, dope, kush, Mary Jane, and hemp are just a few of the slang terms used to refer to the cannabis plant, more commonly known as marijuana. Now, we all know that marijuana is illegal here in the United States, and we've all heard the reasons why. Today, I want to discuss with you the many benefits of legalizing marijuana in our country. We would see a significant decrease in crime, it would boost our economy, and would provide us with many new medical advances. First, let's look at marijuana law history. It was once very legal due to the fact of the many uses of industrial hemp. What is hemp? Hemp is one of the most durable soft fibers in the world. Marijuana was one of the largest agricultural products in the world until 1883. Did you know the very first law concerning marijuana in America was enacted in 1619 in the Jamestown colony, which stated that each farmer must grow at least 100 hemp plants. The first two copies of the Declaration of Independence were written on cannabis hemp paper, and up until the 1800s, most of the textiles of the United States were made with hemp. Hemp medicines accounted for 50% of the medicines marketed until the last half of the 19th century. Industrial hemp does not get you high. In 1937, the Marijuana Tax Stamp Act was enacted. This was caused by reefer madness, which was articles and other forms of media that depicted black Americans and Mexicans as frenzied beasts who had smoked marijuana, played the devil's music, and heaped respect towards the readership, which was mostly made up of whites. This led to the Stamp Act on marijuana, which included industrial hemp, marijuana, and cannabis medicines. It speculated that hemp potential for abundance of new products would be in direct competition with other sources. Under this law, if you wanted to grow hemp, you had to have a stamp, but they were not selling any to anybody. In fact, the first marijuana conviction happened the day the Tax Stamp Act was enacted. A man who was caught selling 2 joints was arrested and sent to jail for 4 years. The buyer received 18 months in jail. Technically, the crime was not having marijuana. It was not buying the $1 stamp and paying a tax for the marijuana. Never mind the fact that the stamps had not even been made yet. During World War II, the U.S. Department of Agriculture made a short informational film named Hemp for Victory, which was meant to encourage farmers to grow hemp since the supply of foreign fibers was in short supply due to the war. In 1948, when the marijuana law again came into question after the war, Congress recognized that marijuana was made illegal based on the wrong reasons. They now stated that marijuana did not make people violent at all. In fact, it did the exact opposite, and it made them pacifist. They feared that the communists would use it to weaken Americans' will to fight in the war, so they voted to keep it illegal for the exact opposite reason they made it illegal in the first place. Does the prohibition on marijuana work? The prohibition was enacted to reduce the amount of drugs available and to reduce the demand for those drugs. In both cases, it is plain to see that the cannabis prohibition has been a complete failure. It does not stop people from using marijuana. Actually, in 1937, it was estimated that there were 55,000 marijuana smokers in the United States. Today, there's an estimated 50 million marijuana smokers in the United States. Let's talk about a few of the marijuana myths that you may have heard. First, marijuana kills brain cells. In the 1974 Heath-Tulane study, monkeys were given marijuana through a gas mask. President Ronald Reagan announced after the study was concluded that one of the most reliable scientific sources said that marijuana use causes permanent brain damage. The experiment was conducted by pumping the equivalent of 30 joints a day into monkeys through gas masks for 1 year. However, the monkeys began to atrophy and die after 90 days. Brain damage was concluded after counting the brain cells of monkeys who had been given the marijuana and the monkeys who had not. This study became the foundation of the government and other special organizations who wanted to keep marijuana illegal. However, after 6 years of requesting how the study was conducted, it was finally revealed that instead of administering 30 joints a day for 1 year, Dr. Heath used a method of pumping 63 Colombian-strength joints into the gas mask with no additional oxygen over a time period of merely 5 minutes. The monkey's cause of death was actually suffocation, and suffocation does lead to brain cell damage. In 2005, a study conducted by Chai Sang at the University of Saskatchewan reported that marijuana may actually stimulate brain cell activity. However, this report did not receive the same attention. Marijuana causes lung cancer. There are no cases of marijuana-only smokers having lung cancer, emphysema, or any other lung diseases. So this myth can be disproved. Marijuana is addictive. It's not addictive. There's only 3% of people in treatment for marijuana are there voluntarily, and studies have ranked addiction to marijuana under caffeine. It is undoubtedly true that there are more teenagers in treatment for marijuana use than any other substance. However, when the teens are caught with marijuana, they are given an ultimatum. Either they go to treatment or they receive jail time. A look at marijuana in comparison with other drugs shows us a lot of interesting facts. The #1 killer in the country is tobacco, which beats out AIDS, heroin, crack, cocaine, car accidents, fire, and murder combined. With over 430,000 deaths a year, it is interesting that tobacco receives government subsidies, is grown with radioactive fertilizer, and still remains a legal substance. Alcohol is responsible for 85,000 deaths a year. Caffeine is responsible for 1 to 10,000 deaths a year. Some of the most popular over-the-counter pain relievers, such as ibuprofen, naproxen, and aspirin, are responsible for 7,500 deaths a year. There are no deaths directly attributed to cannabis use anywhere. You cannot find one single death caused by marijuana anywhere. You would have to smoke 15,000 joints in 20 minutes to receive a toxic amount of THC. So what about the gateway theory? Marijuana is believed to be a gateway theory to harder drugs. However, the drug itself has no properties to push a person into trying another harder drug. Due to the prohibition of marijuana, the trade of the drug takes place in the black market, therefore blending the soft drug dealers with the hard drug dealers. The dealers are all about making money, so due to the outlaw of marijuana, the dealers advertise their other drugs when selling marijuana. Only 1 out of 104 marijuana users uses cocaine, and less than 1 out of 104 marijuana users uses heroin. Marijuana will make you lazy. This is commonly believed in the United States. However, there are 50 million people in America and over half the Canadian population who have admitted to smoking marijuana, yet both societies have seemed to flourish. There are many well-known people and celebrities that have admitted to smoking marijuana. For example, Steve Jobs of Apple Computers, Ted Turner of CNN, countless musicians such as the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Willie Nelson, and of course Snoop Dogg. Virtually every presidential candidate in the recent history has admitted to using marijuana at least once. Now, the benefits of legalizing marijuana. You see a significant decrease in crime. Crimes associated with marijuana are simply based on the fact that the person has marijuana and is violating the prohibition. There are no cases where marijuana caused people to be violent, as seen with alcohol. Legalization of marijuana would lower the value of marijuana, therefore destroying the billion-dollar black market industry of marijuana trade, which includes removing the reason for drug cartels, growers, and dealers to remain violent and in control of the sale of the drug. This means you would see a decrease in violence. This would reduce organized crime, and it would demolish the blending of soft drug dealers and hard drug dealers. As far as the economy goes, legalizing marijuana would lead to a huge generated revenue. In British Columbia, Canada alone, it is suspected that illegal marijuana trade brings in $7 billion a year, and up to 85% of that product is brought into the U.S. So legalizing marijuana in the United States will keep that money here. There's an article by Popular Mechanics called The New Billion-Dollar Crop. It's talked about hemp and how it's used to produce more than 5,000 textile products, ranging from rope to fine laces. The woody herds of the hemp remaining after the fiber has been removed contain more than 77% cellulose and can be used to produce more than 25,000 products, ranging from dynamite to cellophane. High-level drug dealers do not want legalized marijuana. Why? It would decrease their profit. The worrisome thing is that you have police officers and other people in the judicial system who agree with these high-level drug dealers because they know their jobs will get that there's no longer a marijuana problem. The money used by the DEA to fight drug wars with marijuana is money that we could leave in our treasury to go towards the deficit. There has been an explosion in prison construction that has been closely followed by an explosion in incarceration. Building prisons, managing prisons, and funding prisons accounts for is the fastest growing business in America. Over the past 20 years, inmate population has quadrupled. America accounts for 5% of the world's population, but accounts for 25% of the prisoners' population. Currently, there are 45,000 prisoners in state and federal prisons for marijuana violations. This does not include local jails. There were 546 marijuana users arrested in 2005. So you see, by legalizing marijuana, we would dramatically reduce the amount of inmates in our prison systems, therefore saving taxpayers money. Pharmaceutical companies also are against the prohibition being lifted due to the fact that marijuana has many natural medicinal uses, which would mess with their profit. The medicinal uses of marijuana can be used to treat glaucoma, epilepsy, terminally ill patients, anorexia, HIV/AIDS, hypoglycemia, asthma, and the list goes on and on and on. It's plain to see that marijuana is not bad at all, and in comparison to alcohol and tobacco, it has many more benefits than both drugs combined. We have discussed the ridiculous reasoning of Congress to make it illegal, then their decision to allow its growth to help us through World War II, only to vote to keep it illegal after the war ended for the exact opposite reason they outlawed it in the first place. Currently, there are 8 states that have legalized marijuana on a state level, with many more already looking at following their example. Here in Georgia, we have the Campaign for Access, Reform, and Education, better known as the Georgia Care Project. This project strives to inform people about cannabis and is pushing for legal reform for medical marijuana. I urge each of you to go to their website at georgiacareproject.com and inform yourselves how the legality of marijuana in our own state could benefit us greatly. Volunteer to help the cause, and let's end the prohibition on money for our economy, medicines for sick patients, and saving our own money as taxpayers with a reduction in our prison systems.